Sports betting. Sports betting. Sports betting. Sports betting. Sports betting. Sports betting scares me. Oh, it's scary. It is so scary. It is so scary. Oh my God. One of my friends brung up the idea of using sports betting as a way to make millions and millions of dollars. I'm very scared for him because he's one of those balls to the wall type of guys. And I'm worried. But yeah, sports betting is the act of putting down a wager on an outcome of a sporting event, right? And I feel like as a society, we have gone too far. We have moved to a place we cannot return from. Oh my God. Sports betting is everywhere. It's everywhere. All the celebrities got it. All the different characters got it. It's marketed to kids. It's marketed to adults. There's grown folks that's betting. I'm a little bit worried because of I feel like we've reached a new level of, have you ever been on a carnival cruise or like a casino where you see like old folks just like tapping the screen and just hoping that it rolls? Yeah, sports betting is the new casino, and it again scares me. And I feel like since it plays on the feeling that ball by the way that it's so connected to the sport, because of, I feel like if you had, let me start this again. When I think it was like during COVID time, like 2020 peak, 2020, 2021 COVID time, right? I wanted to get into it because of like, I watch so much basketball. If you're coming here from I Kinda Know Hoops, hi! Leave a like, comment, subscribe. I love you too. But it worries me because of I be trying to put in my ball knowledge to their analytics, and it don't be hitting the way I think it should be hitting. So I took this morning to literally call all my homies that sports bet and like the mindsets and what goes into trying to have the perfect parlay and the perfect setup and how they got into it. The whole 9 yards. Let me start off with how a lot of people got into it. So in 2018, they passed a legislative bill that removed the federal right to just ban all betting, and it left it up to the states, right? And some states, they're like, oh, we don't want sports betting in our states, so let's move around from that. But then the sports betting companies were like, you know what? Hey. Either use our company or just miss out on all the millions and billions of dollars that's going to be bet if you like it or not. So states are like, dang, we are losing enough money. We're losing a lot of money. So these companies are like, hey, you know what? If you legalize it, we'll take care of it. We will take care of it. And we'll give you some of the revenue from the taxes that we're going to be paying you to let us run. And they're like, oh, this is a good idea, because keep in mind, COVID's been hitting a lot of states in the booty. They've been running some cheeks. I'm telling you that for sure. Especially if you're down south, a lot of these states are weaving and riling right now, right? So they turn around and say, fine, you could sports bet in this state. And then a lot of these sports betting companies are like, oh, we finna run it up. They start running all the promotions. If you give 50, we'll give you $200. If you give 5, we'll give you $500 just to get you into the door. And you know what folks were doing? They were, this is free money. I know basketball. Let me put some bread here. And a lot of folks lost a lot of money. And I find it interesting the way that it turned into a recreational hobby for a lot of people. And it got to the point where they were budgeting sports betting into their monthly expenses. You know why that's a problem? Well, one, it's a constant amount of money that you're willing to just quote unquote bet. But keep in mind, a vast majority of bets end up being in losses because a lot of folks are betting with more of like the emotional aspects of the sport of basketball, or like, for example, football, basketball, tennis, lacrosse, hockey, all the sports, right? Instead of just looking at it from a pure analytical level. I think that'll be the best way that they'll describe it. It's funny because they had a lawsuit out they had a lawsuit out, and the way that they described what sports betting was, or sports gambling, was more so a skill that you can train and learn and get better at, and quote unquote like pick the better props, right? That's the overarching idea to why they're different than a lot of other gambling and aspects of that nature. So it gets difficult trying to pry yourself away from. It's difficult to move on from sports betting once you really jump in, for a couple of reasons. One, I forget how addicting lights and greens and doing a good job really is, especially in the grand scheme of things, especially in the grand play of things, right? Because I was talking to some of my friends that sports bet, and they're talking about the feeling of knowing that you greened out. There's nothing to it. I call my homie. He gonna hit me with the knowing that you gonna have that extra $500 deposited directly into your account. There's nothing like it. It feels magnificent. And you know what? I get it. I do not blame you. That's a feeling, a once in a million type of hit, especially once you start getting into the prop plays. For those that don't know, parlay plays, where basically they pick a whole bunch of different props, and you get really, really big payoffs based on how quote unquote unlikely a lot of these parlay bets are. For a good way to like understand it, a good explanation. Imagine trying to flip a coin, heads or tails, but then you have to get heads 43 times. Those are the type of odds that you are playing with. So yeah, no, it's wild. And my own experience when it comes to sports betting, I'd be figuring how bad of a sports, how bad at betting I am. But you know, it's not even my fault. I realized I should not be sports betting when I realized, especially when I met a couple of these players. That's when I stepped back and said, you know what? I don't think this is smart, because you get to realize these are real people with real lives that genuinely do not care about your parlay. There was a whole trend of DMing athletes, specifically NBA players, talking about you broke my prop and nah. And them not like caring, because it's not their job to care. They shouldn't care. That would break on the integrity of the game. And you know, even speaking on the integrity of the game, sports betting has integrated itself so deeply into a lot of these major league sports where you can't have one without the other. You cannot have one without the other. I found it wild when I think it was Chuck's. No. It was ESPN. It was the ESPN bets, where ESPN had their own money. They had their own money lines for the games that was going on, and specific player props and things of that nature, which is just higher, lower specific players. But I'm like, is that not calling from inside the betting house? To each their own. And as I was interviewing people, there's a specific trend that I was knowing with a lot of these interviews I was having, where people were basically talking themselves into betting more and more based off like the pure knowledge that they'd had. And alongside that, I also noticed it was never enough, especially when you got to the point of talking about the winnings and losings. Because when you don't see the money becomes very abstract. Like, I was interviewing someone that said that they lost thousands of dollars in the span of a weekend of basketball. Wild. That's wild. It just turns to being wild, especially when the games are so quick. And I kind of understand why these NBA, not even NBA, but like these major league teams are collaborating with sports betting apps and sports betting. Just like, I understand why a lot of these major league franchises are collaborating with these sports betting apps and sports betting companies, because it gives you a reason to watch. That was another point that a lot of folks kept harping on. because usually if it's the fourth quarter, it's a blowout, they down by 20, you tend to check out pretty quickly. But if you're not even watching the game for the outcome, you're more so watching your game for the player, it feels different. You're more excited to continue watching, even though the outcome has already been decided like 15, 20 minutes earlier, right? So that brings me to the realization that if you don't have an addictive personality, you're able to separate. You can separate it to actually enjoy sports betting. It's more as a way to enhance the vibe of watching the game. And then I started to notice America has this way of jumping from addiction to addiction when it comes to trying to stop people from doing a vice, right? So before we had smoking cigarettes, and then there was a whole bunch of ads that were surrounded around stop smoking because it does blah, blah, blah. And then the rise of vaping came around as a way to do that instead of smoking cigarettes. But then there was more ads that started coming out where it's like, hey, you don't know what's vaping. You don't know what's in it. It's battery juice. No one knows what's going on. And then it switched over to a whole nother vice in gambling, which I find interesting because we haven't got a chance to really stop any of them. We haven't got a chance to really stop any of them. And it also reminds me of how one of the main reasons why sports gambling jumped the way it did and it was such a big boom was because of the advertising and the advertising dollars that are put into that is being put into this specific vice, especially since sports betting companies, they actively were able to kind of trick the states into letting them just move around unencompassed, right? So one of the things that they did, they made sure to tell the states like, hey, we can't give you guys as much tax as we promised, because if we're able to move freely, we're going to be able to make more money and be able to pay you guys more taxes in the later. Basically saying we're not going to pay taxes now, we're going to pay taxes later. And some of them kind of fell for the okie doke again due to lobbying and things of that nature. And when it comes to the advertising of sports betting apps, it's turned into an ever encompassing feeling. For example, we have all these celebrities, we have all these cartoons, we have every influencer has a sports betting app or their partnerships in some way, and on and on and on, because they're throwing money everywhere. Keep in mind that might be the money that you guys are like losing, but that's. And another thing that I found interesting when it comes to, actually, no, let me not talk about sports betting. I feel like we've reached to the point of being able to gamble on everything, right? So as I was sports betting, getting ready to think about this video, I was noticing something. So first, you can bet on NBA games, NFL games, and then you can go to badminton, and then you can go to the hockey, and then you go to bowling, and then you go to tennis, and then you go to badminton, and then you go to table tennis, and then you go to here and then there, and then eventually you'll find you in some Siberian, and eventually you'll find yourself in some Lithuanian country trying to figure out what sporting that they're doing on a random Thursday afternoon in the winter time, because you can bet on literally everything when it comes to sport. And then you step back a little bit, and then you realize there's betting on everything now. You want to bet on the presidential race? Go over here. You want to bet on some celebrity drama? Let's go on here. You want to know if Jake Paul is going to knock out Mike Tyson in the first round? You can go over there. So I feel like there's been such a vested interest in continuing this type of lifestyle around betting and around being able to like pump a whole bunch of money outside of people's pockets to be able to go somewhere else, because of being able to use your vice anywhere has been such a great change to the economy that we're sitting in at this moment, right? And it kind of it kind of led me down a rabbit hole where I found out about the electronic casino. So what they're trying to pass, they've passed in a couple states where you basically have a full-blown casino in your pocket 24/7, 365, 97 all the time, right? And it's literally, you're able to play blackjack, play 21, you do anything, Texas Hold'em, all on your phone all the time. And I feel like that's to a random individual, I feel like that's not enticing, but to folks that has been doing this and they've been priming their own brain for the past like 8 years now, like 6-7 years now, it's an aspect of their life that they might want to try. And one of the things that I started seeing, or at least like I was mentioning earlier, with like the excessive amount of celebrities that have been able to back a lot of these sports betting and just like casino like apps. Streamers, there's a whole section in streaming. So I started streaming a little bit ago. You can probably find me like right around like here somewhere. In case you go live, come hang out with me. It's basically like this, but we just rap and tag. It's fun. We watch movies and play games. It's fun. But there's a whole streaming section that's literally dedicated to just casino play, where people are just like swiping and playing for like 5-6 hours straight, right? And then I started noticing something. They are getting money from these companies to play. So now you're sitting back, you're trying to notice something, you're like, is this just one long 6-hour ad? Wild. And there's even been some cases where influencers came out where it's like, yeah, I did this deal because I really like gambling. That's like one of my favorite pastimes to do, and now I get to do it technically for free. But are the people watching knowing that you're not paying? Is that to each your own, to each their own? But yeah, no, that was my rant on a little rant on sports betting. Yeah, we out.